Philippe, first of all, what did you make of Edouard Philippe's comments there?
Well, I think it can be said that the government all the way down the line this week, in the build-up to today, has been trying to weaken the Yellow Vest movement by encouraging its more soft members, not the more radical elements, not to come to Paris at all today, so as this protest movement wouldn't take place. That call has obviously fallen on deaf ears. You heard that Edouard Philippe just then was appealing once again for people not to come and protest in the Champs-Élysées, not to encourage the more radical elements, those who want to go all the way in attacking the police, breaking into shops, setting fire to buildings, so as not to encourage them also to come to the French capital, and warning those who may even still be thinking of coming here that if they do come, they might get sucked into these protests and therefore themselves either injured or arrested when they were just coming here to protest peacefully. But so far today, if you look at the situation a week ago when there were 343 arrests a short while ago, there were only 107 last week. There have been several hundred people also taken into custody. Only 3 were taken in last week at this time. So it's a much stronger police presence. There's a much bigger clampdown, much greater surveillance of these protesters in the Champs-Élysées, and not only in the Champs-Élysées, but all over the country, but particularly here in Paris, because that image of the Champs-Élysées, of the Arc de Triomphe, the one that we saw beamed around the world this time last week, with fires outside, clashes, tear gas, is a disastrous image for France. And that is also something else that the French government, the French Prime Minister, the French President Emmanuel Macron is very worried about, because it's denting the French economy. As you said before, the Eiffel Tower is closed today, the Arc de Triomphe is closed, department stores are shut, monuments are closed, the transport system is disrupted. This is all very bad news for France, just 3 weeks ahead of Christmas, when the capital is a place where many people come to do their Christmas shopping.
Now, just a reminder for those viewers just joining us here on France 24, you're watching our special coverage of these ongoing Yellow Vest protesters, which have already turned violent on the streets of Paris this Saturday morning. We heard a short while ago from the French Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe. He's said that so far this Saturday, 481 people have been detained in the capital, and 211 of them have been placed in custody. Philippe Turle, we've heard a lot from Edouard Philippe in recent days, but very little from the President, Emmanuel Macron.
Well, Emmanuel Macron has said that he's going to speak on Monday. Why is he leaving it so long? The message from the Élysée Palace has been that he doesn't want to complicate matters. He doesn't want to aggravate a situation that is already tense. The person at the centre of all of this is, of course, Emmanuel Macron. Why are these protests taking place in the first place? It's because of Emmanuel Macron and because of the policies that they think are unjust. The French president, since he was elected in May last year, has been perceived by many people in France as being too aloof, too arrogant, too cut off from the reality of everyday people. And the element which was really the straw that broke the camel's back was this announcement that they were going to increase fuel prices 6% for diesel and 3% for petrol from the 1st of January next year. And people said, well, we're already paying high prices for fuel. Because of the price of oil increasing, that means fuel prices go up in this country. We don't want them to go up even further because we can't afford it. We're already struggling to make ends meet at the end of the month. We don't understand why the government is being so harsh on us. The government replied, well, we need to make France a greener country. We need you to trade in your old vehicles. By increasing the price of petrol and diesel, we're forcing you to do that. You can take a hybrid vehicle or a green vehicle, electric vehicle, and that will be better for France. They say, well, we're not worried about the future. We're worried about the end of the month, so we don't agree with that. And that was the crux, the start of this protest movement, which has then, since then, mushroomed out into something much bigger and become, in the terms of one of the ministers in France this week, a monster that is now even out of control of the people who organised it in the first place.
Now, if you're just tuning into France 24, this is our special coverage of these ongoing Yellow Vest protests. These are the pictures coming into us, the latest pictures from central Paris as riot police stand off against hundreds of Yellow Vest demonstrators who've turned out for the fourth consecutive weekend this Saturday. They're, of course, up in arms against the Macron government. Now, Philip, this whole movement began, of course, in anger at a fuel hike, a hike in fuel tax. That's now been scrapped. So why are the Yellow Vests still up in arms?
Well, there is a simple reason for that, is that because this movement doesn't have a leader, it's a strength and a weakness of this movement. Its strength is that it's given a chance for the average man or woman in the street to become a protester and to find a union with other people in a similar situation, thanks to social media, thanks to Instagram, thanks to Facebook, thanks to Twitter. They've all got together. In the old days, of course, this wouldn't have been possible. They would have been called out by unions or called out within their own work groups to protest. Now anybody can do that by just sending out signals on social media. This all started with a petition against fuel price rises. That has now been agreed on by the government. That's not going to take place. But because you've got more radical elements in this group, they don't even agree with each other within the group. Even the softer elements don't agree with some of the other softer elements in there. They say the government hasn't done enough. The government could go further. The government, for example, should bring back the wealth tax. The government gave a tax break to the very wealthy in this country, making it much easier for them to earn money, but they haven't given us a tax break, which would make our lives much easier when we can't even make ends meet. So they want that brought back. The government said we're not going to bring it back. So they're angry about that. They're angry about the fact that pensioners are having to pay greater taxes than they were before. Macron says pensioners had a very easy time, many of them having full employment all their lives during the 30 glorious years when France was doing very well in the 1960s and 70s and 80s. Therefore, it's right that at the end of their days, they should contribute a bit more to those who are having a struggle now. Of course, the Yellow Vest protesters don't see it that way around. So they say the government's not going far enough. We want more out of them. And they know also, I think, that the more they protest, that's how they perceive the situation, the more the government's going to go in. They started protesting. The government said they were going to do away with the fuel hike. So therefore, I think these protests are going to continue.